Hey Ren, good afternoon.
Hey Brent, how you doing?
Yeah, no, it's good to be with you again today. We were just about 6 weeks together with your CEO Rob Brewster and talking about GoFormz growth trajectory and the collaboration, particularly between the two of you on that. And it was great to hear just how data and content
Yep,
centric you've been, kind of this
yep,
very intentional strategy for driving demand gen, engaging and converting. You talked about heavily leveraging HubSpot's playbook and
yeah,
weaponizing content,
yeah,
two terms I liked a lot. And so today's conversation was really, hoping to go deeper on those, using
sure.
data and content to personalize the buyer journey,
Yeah,
ways that drive higher engagement and higher conversions.
yeah.
And in our pre-call, you already started to touch on just this. And so just jump right into it, how you drive that high volume of inbound traffic and start to pattern recognize.
Yeah. Well, I'll just jump right in, and if I start drifting off, just pulling back in and be like, hey, you're kind of going off a tangent. But one of the themes we were talking about, and it's funny because years from now I might look back and be like, ooh, I was dead wrong. But right now I feel like there's a sea change going on in terms of SaaS software and how it's going to market. If you rewind the clock back 8 or 9 years ago, SaaS companies, cloud companies like HubSpot or like a Salesforce were the software's in the cloud instead of on-prem, and the sales and go-to-market strategies were just evolving. Salesforce in particular was using more traditional sort of enterprise marketing and sales approaches, whereas HubSpot, I'm a big fan of how they went to market, was kind of evolving the strategy around centering around content marketing. But one of the things that we're talking about was how we've taken that playbook and weaponized it, so to speak, for our own purposes to fit our product-led growth go-to-market motion. I think a big part of it is kind of mining the organic traffic that comes in and then using that to go outbound was kind of our first play. And we quickly realized that sort of more traditional playbook, like I was mentioning, like Salesforce was doing, or some of the other larger cloud companies were doing, wasn't working for us as well as the inbound traffic we could drive. And by that, I mean, we get, I don't want to share too many detailed numbers, but we get upwards of 10,000 signups per month coming in for a free trial. And we see a lot of patterns there forming. And so, for example, we might see 12 or 20% in a month might be coming in from a construction industry. Another 10% might be coming from field service, 8% healthcare, whatever it is. And then we'll dig in a little deeper and we'll go, well, what's going on here? And we'll see patterns. We'll see the types of companies that are signing up. We'll see their use cases. We'll see how they're the things that they're interested in on our site, and also their search terms. So what I alluded to is years ago, we said, hey, let's do the traditional play. Let's take a look at what these industries are doing. Let's identify those use cases. Let's build out some case studies. And then let's go outbound with an SDR team and reach out to those that haven't found us yet and say, hey, are you interested in using GoFormz? Your colleagues, other colleagues in the construction industry are using us for inspection forms or work orders, and you should too. And we found that the take rate on that was pretty low, that people don't want to be pinged. They don't want people calling them on the phone, especially if those industries are on the front lines, folks that are, out there at job sites or doing inspections or doing service calls. They don't have time to answer the phone for an SDR to try to tell them, why they should be switching to digital forms. Instead, we kind of took that HubSpot approach and built out a content marketing program that drives in audience organically. But we use that same sort of source of truth. We looked at the organic traffic coming in, we look at what those trends are, and then we build content to target even more audience. And the idea is to attract the audience to come in based on what they're looking for. And it's kind of a theme that we've embrace throughout, where our mantra is focus on assistance and not selling. And that's from the top of the funnel, middle funnel, bottom funnel. It's kind of our call to arms there. Is we don't want to be heavy with the sales messaging. We want to say, what are you looking for? Can we help you find it? We're not going to try to convince you that we're something that we're not, right? And so
Yep.
I'll stop there. Any questions?
Well, no, so really helpful to hear the evolution from inbound to the outbound take
Yeah.
rate wasn't that high. Curious if you can just say more on that. The take rate, what do you remember
You know,
People are coming to you, you're calling them, you
yeah,
get 1% to convert to a meeting as a baseline, or
yeah, it's probably closer to like 3% of like, 3 out of 100 folks touch would take that meeting. But where it was a little bit different because we are a product-led growth company, so a lot of that is focused on self-service. That a lot of those enterprise sort of level calls or outbound calls, it doesn't really fit the product that we're selling, right? So we have self-service pricing. The product experience when you sign up is built for the user coming in and self-service onboarding versus professional services or SCs or an integration team, right? And a consultant. We don't do that. We take more of that sort of Atlassian approach or the Survey Monkey approach, where you don't need to talk to a human to use our product. So a lot of those calls would simply be kind of walking through what others in their industries are using, and sometimes would be interesting or not. So the conversion after that call wasn't nearly as successful, and we found that the resources and time and energy spent wasn't really worth the ROI we were getting.
Yep. Cool. So now if you go over to, you started it, so you built out a content program, and you similarly use content to look at the trend data to kind of refine the messaging. Curious to hear first
Yeah.
about what was the content strategy? How did the content build
Yeah.
work?
Yeah, sure. So like I mentioned, we'd mine the inbound traffic for basically demand signals from which industries are we seeing, which use cases, and typically what are those roles. And then with my content marketing team, we'd sit down and go, okay, based on volume, based on average revenue per account for different industries or different size companies, how do we prioritize our content or editorial calendar? Primarily focused on blog as the sort of, and that's the piece that I got inspiration from the HubSpot guys on, is if you think blog centric, then you can develop a whole hierarchy of value out of that. So, aside from the blog, we would focus on case studies. Case studies is a wonderful example of a content program that we leverage over and over again. It's almost like it provides us with all the elements we need for our own sort of CMS system, if you will. So within a case study, we're very deliberate for what we're looking for. Obviously, the more traditional problem, solution, results is a big part of it, right? Trying to tease out that story and the use cases, but also the the elements of that we find can give us a lot of scale. And by that, I mean, we like to look for video snippets that we could repurpose for social media, audio bites that we could repurpose as well, pull quotes that we could use for social proof cards, which are basically images that have the quotes, and we kind of position them for certain audiences, but also looking for areas on our website. So we have like industry pages. So where could we use different types of content? And so the case studies are ones where it's like the gift that keeps on giving. It's not only a great piece of evergreen content that we find a lot of traffic comes in via the search engines. It's also kind of our content management system source, where we keep using those pieces and those elements for other initiatives over time, including some of our advertising, which has been quite successful.
And social proof cards is like just a single card with a
digital card. So it might be, for example, June was safety month for field service and construction, right? So we might have a carousel post in LinkedIn that says, June is safety month, for make your job site safer with digital forms. And then we'll have 4 or 5 of these social proof cards in a carousel that people can kind of flip through and see how different users are using our platform, for example, and our solution to make their job site safer. Is an example of very targeted assembled content.
Yep. Cool. Yeah. And I agree. I mean, I think it's smart, it's this idea of blogs and case studies. You can kind of build everything out of that. You can build ebooks, you can build diagnostics, ROI sheets.
Absolutely. And webinars. And also very much helps us. Again, it's all connected. As a product-led growth, a PLG company, it's also great signals back for the product team to go, which features are more popular, or where are people really extracting value from certain feature sets, or using certain features in tandem. So it helps there in terms of signal back to our dev team. It's also very useful for our account managers, because oftentimes there might be some accounts that are experiencing a lot of value on the GoFormz platform, that some of the other account managers' accounts would also benefit from. So it helps start those conversations, and it helps assist our customers unlock value with our platform.
Cool. I'm curious if do you think in terms of like top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel content and how that strings together? I mean, you're getting a lot of inbound traffic,
Yeah.
might look at a blog, might look at a case study. What are your triggers to then kind of convert them down the funnel?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So, it really depends. If it's use case specific, for example, we might do a campaign going after the field service industry, targeting the field service industry around inspection forms use case. And that's very specific use case with very specific types of forms. We'll build out blog posts and maybe an ebook or do some webinars around that on the content marketing side. And then we'll amplify that with paid media, and draws in very specific audience. And by the way, when I say paid media in the context of GoFormz, I would say nearly all of that is SEM. We do some display, we do some video, but we found that the most productive form of paid media for us is search, because our buyers, whether they're looking to click on an ad or an organic result, they start with Google and they type in something like inspection forms for HVAC or something like that. Whether it's an organic result or it's an SEM ad, they'll click on that, they'll come in, and we'll have a very specific landing page that they'll come to, and we'll kind of walk through how in that use case, GoFormz could be a great solution. And then if we know that that's that engaged user, so that's kind of top of funnel, if we know that that sort of audience is coming to that specific page, and we use a lot of MarTech to kind of track this and do contextual onboarding, they sign up for free trial, then within their account, we have some free inspection forms ready to go, sample forms. So it's already tailored and contextually set up for that user. And that's more middle of the funnel. And then we try to track that engagement rate. Are they dropping off? Where's the abandonment rate? And if they progress through, then we hit the bottom of the funnel and we hit them with better lead nurturing, not spam, because again, that mantra of we want to focus on assistance and not selling is really important for our user base. So if someone's coming in looking for inspection forms, we don't want to send them a general blast that starts talking about, I don't know, lockout, tagout boxes or, electrical design. We want to stick with that inspection form. That's what they're looking for. So we'll customize a lot of those nurture programs based on those signals that we have coming in.
Got it.
Yeah.
Curious, just so for GoFormz, SEM is most important, but as you think about, because I like this term, we think about it as top of the funnel amplification, right? You got a blog, whatever, and
right.
We have seen like a lot of times you can send an email, but if you go to a LinkedIn ad to the same audience, you get higher email participation.
Right.
Curious to hear some of your other kind of top of the funnel amplification strategies or conversion.
You mean to attract audience in?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting you brought in LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is an interesting platform for us. I kind of put that more in the bucket with our social media, which is a really important program for us for several reasons. And I put that in the same sort of bucket or category as our peer review sites. So like a Trustpilot or like a G2, or there's some others out there. I think Gartner has some called Capterra is one of them. And the notion out there is starts with like brand awareness programs. What are other people saying about the GoFormz platform? If they're in market, they're going to find their way to that LinkedIn feed, or they're going to find their way to that G2 market grid, or for the competitive analysis. And then within that, we take that opportunity to build out our digital aura, right? So our presence, that's kind of that earned media, to put in that old language, that earned media play, where it's validation that we're real, that not only are we real, but we have some real customers just like you, Mr. Searcher, who arrived here. And we've got a pretty strong reputation, and here's how you should be thinking about us. But don't take it from us, take it from your peers looking at, these quotes on the site, whether it's LinkedIn or G2. And so we don't really look at it from a budgetary perspective as lead gen or demand gen, but it certainly helps with that, but a little bit more down funnel, if you will, in the buyer's journey. So they might have found us via SEM. So it's like a multi-touch piece there, right? So they might have searched for inspection forms, hit GoFormz, and go, I don't know, are they real? Like, who's using them? And then go back out and then see our LinkedIn page and go, oh my God, there's some great content here. There's a video from someone that looks a lot like me, or looks a lot like, the problems I'm trying to address. And then they'll hit that up. And so it's that multi-touch attribution across different platforms. And some of those platforms are walled gardens like a LinkedIn. So the biggest first order amplification of our content programs that draws in and attracts that audience is paid media by far. It's organic search and it's paid search. But that secondary hit that we see nurtures, it's kind of a self-nurturing program, is LinkedIn and G2 and Trustpilot and Capterra, some of these other peer review sites out there. Interestingly, we haven't seen a lot on the other social media sites. And it's not for lack of trying. I think that one, today it seems to be hitting well, but we're always testing it out. Maybe Facebook would do as well. I think, some of the more visually focused ones like an Instagram or a TikTok, probably not the best for B2B buyers, with digital form solution. But we do take a lot of inspiration from them. So, I know I'm all over the place with content because I'm a content nerd, but when we do videos, for example, snackable videos, we build those more in terms of for the TikTok generation than we do for kind of the older MySpace, YouTube generation. And by that, I don't mean we're doing crazy TikTok dance moves. I mean, we've got very short form, very sort of visually interesting pieces where it's not going to waste a lot of the user's time because we know that their time is precious online, and if they're not interested, they're just going to bounce. So we want to make sure that we can get our message across, and it's a quick hit, and it's a information rich video clip.
Yep, that's great. Let's go over, I think there are two more meaty topics in the time we have is, campaigns are kind of these journeys, right? I mean, when we talked earlier with Rob Neckall, you guys have this heavy kind of segment to use case focus. Your personas are a little bit embedded within that based on segment and size. When you think about, so you've done a great job on your website of you can get one click to the segment you care about. You can get to kind of both top of the funnel and middle of funnel assets, depending on how deep you want to go. How do you think about your website in terms of personalizing buyer journeys for that initial capture, then conversion, then expansion?
Yeah, great question. So, I'm kind of a quant nerd, so we try to measure everything, and we've got a lot of measurement technology going on our website. In particular, we always look, as a marketing team, we're always looking every other week at the heat map on the different pages. No surprise, people tend not to scroll to the bottom to read the content at the bottom. It's kind of like what's above the fold. That old adage and strategy stays true. It's like if it's not above the fold, most of your audience isn't going to engage with it and see it. But things like that, it's kind of like the foundational approach to it. But I also think like the sort of philosophical, if you will, approach, again, that mantra, focus on assistance and not selling. I think about that buyer's journey in terms of no one is searching for digital forms on my iPad for fun, right? They're trying, when they type that into Google, they've got something they're trying to address and trying to solve immediately. So it starts with that sort of hierarchy of content that's going to hit to engage that audience. If they don't see it within the first couple pages, they're gone. So we want to make sure that we're always measuring, again, the heat mapping on the site, but also looking at our newsletters as a strong signal back into what the audience finds interesting. In particular, the newsletters to our new free trial signups, because that's kind of the freshest cohort, if you will, that kind of represents, the gestalt of the now of what people are looking for. So it's a constant optimization piece of it. And our marketing operations group is always measuring and feeding that back to our content marketing team, who then works very closely with our paid media team. It's just kind of this triumvirate where it goes around, and we're always optimizing the audience coming in. What are they clicking on? Where's our abandonment rate? That's the other piece, is where are we not doing well? Well, let's not do that anymore. Let's try these other pieces. It's constantly a philosophy around experimentation.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you had earlier said, hey, like for a use case campaign, you would you sort of starting with a use case, let's say in the construction industry, there's a blog, ebook about that,
Yeah.
or somebody goes from a blog to an ebook, you want to keep them in that thread of, hey, you're not
Yeah.
going to spam them with something outside
Yep.
of that.
Yep.
Curious just to hear more about how does that, a couple of examples maybe of how that personalization works. So you're actually responding to that individual's
Yeah.
intent, so to speak.
Yeah. So it starts with, we do a lot of tracking at the very, very top of the funnel, whether it's using the old school UTM methods or kind of newer school pixels, right? Or some of the other stuff that's coming in from ad systems to give us a notion of where that audience is coming in from. What are the search terms are coming in from? What campaign is bringing them in? Because when we built those campaigns, we're very deliberate about what we believe that audience is searching for, whether it's use case based, like inspection forms or work order forms, or it's industry based, like healthcare or manufacturing, machinery, and retail. We have some notion and some strategy behind those landing pages that floats up to those ad campaigns or the organic campaigns coming in. In some cases, we will do things like try to make that page content dynamic. We've tried that in the past based on where they're coming in from, optimize or do kind of an A/B, if you will, of the different content in there. That's actually a perfect example of where we thought we were being really clever and it actually didn't make a difference. Like turns out like, they don't really care. They're still, they're still going to bounce to that next page and nav off. So we go back to, as much as we like to, pat ourselves on the back and go, hey, that's a really smart idea. We'll let the data show the way. And in that example I just gave you, the data shows the way that what's actually important is that old school philosophy of have good nav on your pages. If this person's not interested, they've got a couple choices. One is they can just hit the X button and close that tab down and be gone. The other is hit that back button to the old page, or look for what else, what are the teasers, the CTAs, the links on that page to take me to the next content that I might be interested in. And that's where we can be a little bit more deliberate and try to control that user's path to, once they're on the site, if they're not interested in the story they're seeing on that one page, maybe you'll be interested in these other ones. We have an manager of SEO and content who's also on the content team that focuses on those journeys. Actually, it's a fascinating. It kind of looks like the old Google Analytics funnel mapping, if you can remember those, where it's just kind of these paths throughout our website, and it kind of looks a lot like that. So if the user chooses their own journey, doesn't like this page, here's where we think they're going to want to go, and then we optimize it based on whether that was a good or bad idea from what the data tells us.
Got it. And what are some examples of that kind of that have worked for, kind of directing them to that next piece of content?
Yeah. So oftentimes, so for example, we'll have something that might be use case based when they're coming in. And then we think, well, let's see, if they're not interested in this, they're probably interested in this one feature that makes it interesting. So for example, the page might be a work order form that people come in from the organic search term, or they hit that paid media campaign, hits the work order form landing page. And we think that person's probably pretty interested in our e-sign technology and that it's legally compliant e-sign and UETA compliant e-sign field. So let's have a nav there that goes, learn more about how your contracts are legally binding. And that's going to be the next journey. And then from there, we'll take them for ready for a free trial sign up, no credit card required, just come on in and, no commitment. And we found in that example that no one was interested in learning more about e-sign. They actually were more interested in like the free trial. So we actually got rid of that middle step and we put the free trial and we kind of just shortened that duration. And I think oftentimes that's something we have to remind ourselves of, which is, I think a lot of the audience only has a limited capacity to try it, at least when you're brand new, they've never heard of you. Like we work at GoFormz, I work at GoFormz every day. Like I understand the parlance and the terms and what I think is interesting. Someone hits our site, they've never really heard of us, they have a need, and we've got maybe 20 seconds to say, hey, go a little bit deeper, and we can assist you with your problem. And, we got to remind ourselves not to be too smart about it and actually just put things in front of them where they said, choose your own adventure journey, and they just need to go where they're going to go. And sometimes the simplest is the best.
And how do you use stories on your website? Like what's the trigger to get them to consume a story?
And by story, you mean like a case study?
Yeah, a case study or a video.
Yeah, so the videos we kind of put there for like folks that on oh God, what do we call the solution? Oh man, someone's gonna be mad. I forgot what we call these things. Basically our industry pages, right? So if you're in construction, you go to our solutions menu and you go to the industries index page and you self-select I'm machinery or whatever. We like to put little snackable videos within those industry pages because we think that's an example of where we think a user self-identifying, and they can say, and then we're like, well, hey, you are looking for more information on manufacturing. You must be in manufacturing. And here's some examples, and they're only like 10-second videos. And we thought, that's probably a great way for them to ingest it. As it turns out, that bet actually wasn't as interesting as simply putting case study navs, like little poster images at the bottom that says, look how this machinery company has benefited and saved 20% with GoFormz, and just going old school and having a nav that goes over to the case study, and then we have the video within the case study. So again, simplifying those hops where it's not we try to follow the rules of attract the audience, engage the audience, get them to convert. And the snackable video is an example of where we thought, okay, this could engage the audience, but really just go straight to the case study to engage them. So that's a long way around to say we tend to centralize that content around case studies, and the little elements like the videos or the social proofs. Those are the pieces that we rip out and maybe decorate some pages with for engagement to test it with, but also use those within our social media posts.
Yep. And the same question on ebooks. How have you found, is there a path there to guide people to an ebook, which I've seen a bunch of on your site, and you can see, as we talked about earlier, you build blogs, you build stories, and then when you have like a ebook with a checklist, you build an ebook with some expertise. So it's a nice build. How do you guide people to that? How do you know when they're ready?
Yeah, ebooks, again, it's been a moment, a journey of trial and error with that. The old anatomy of our playbook with the ebooks, we build it out, and then we would use some of those contents to build like a slide deck. So it might be like, 8 top uses of digital forms for construction, right? You can imagine there's probably 8 great pages in there for a slide deck that our sales folks could go and use. Turns out that wasn't all that useful. We also thought, well, we can then take that ebook and those slides and use that for a webinar, and we could attract a lot of folks that way. And it turns out it's interesting, but not as interesting as some of the how else we could be using our time. Long story short, we found that ebooks actually are a fantastic piece of content for evergreen search content that I wouldn't call it long tail, but it just kind of sits there and just brings in a lot of search traffic over and over. Whereas we thought this would be deliberate sort of human sales enablement material, it's search, and the search engines love our ebooks. And I think a big reason why those ebooks have been particularly successful for us is we write for humans and not the robots. So literally we're like, is this an ebook that someone actually wants to read, or is it just going to be keyword fodder and they're just kind of like shortened for search optimization? And search engines are smart now because they use the signals back from their humans. And if they find that the bounce rate's relatively low from humans that go through there, it's going to put it higher and higher on the SERPs.
Yep. Before we finish on data, you also mentioned, kind of this, hey, you want to get somebody in, they read a blog, you encourage them to do a trial. Now, middle of the funnel is, hey, are they actually using the trial?
Yep.
And you give them some kind of customized forms.
Yep.
How does that sequence continue in terms of to convert and then expand?
Yeah. So, the one piece on this that we haven't really touched on yet, and it's kind of a very sort of nerdy topic, is, we've got a pretty strong MarTech stack throughout all of this, right? So Marketo and Salesforce being at the core of it, but we also build around so many other layers to weaponize, if you will, our content marketing and build stronger sort of more modern marketing automations to fit a PLG model. And in particular, in the middle of the funnel, we have, I'm trying to think of a category of this technology, but basically ways for our onboarding specialists to interact with the audience when they need help. in that middle of the funnel. So they've signed up, they have an account, they have the intent that they want to start using our solution, the free trial. They might be getting stuck. So we've got what we call the talk to a human button, where it's just kind of up on the right bar that says, need help, reach out to us here. We also have intercom, so so people can find the knowledge center and get the help they need. We also use app queues to build out a lot of that as well. And to that point, that's where we have in that middle of the funnel, how do we engage them more, is we've got these onboarding tours that people via app queues that people can sort of go back to. So it's not, some of them, and we're A/B testing some of them are just like, welcome to GoFormz, click these 5 things, we'll show you around. And some of the others are kind of a checklist, so that we know that people are going to go, yeah, I just want to get me, and then they're like, oh, I should have paid attention during that tour. So you can go back there, and it's kind of a resource where people can go back to. And based on that, so this is kind of a long-winded answer to your question. Based on that, we've kind of set the stage for how we think that audience is entering the middle of the funnel, whether they're reaching out for assistance, they're hitting the app queues tours, or they're going to the knowledge center within our intercom. But we're also doing a lot of marketing automation in the background, trying to send them contextually relevant emails, whether it looks like it's coming from a human or it looks like it's coming from what we call the GoFormz machine, where it's Team GoFormz. So based on what they're doing in the product, we'll send out different types of emails, leveraging what we're calling PQL signals, product qualified lead signals. And so that might be they're hitting certain buttons, or there's certain events within the app experience or web app experience that they're doing, that informs our marketing automation to send out different types of contextually relevant content.
Got it. And what are 3 examples of the contextually relevant content?
Yeah. So it might be something that's, we looking at some of the signals, we might find that people are getting stuck in our form builder. So we'll want to send out a recording of a webinar that we know is particularly useful for people that are trying to grok, how do I use this form builder, right? So it's kind of the getting stuck signal. We'll see others where they successfully, again, this is all programmatic, where they've successfully gone through and they've built out a form, but they haven't filled one out yet. So then we might send a nudge email that goes, hey, you're doing great. Looks like you built your first form template. Now go fill it out online here on the Forms tab, or download our app from the App Store and fill it out on your mobile device, bridging that learning gap that perhaps people aren't too sure how to actually start using our platform to fill out forms, right? So that's another example. And then oftentimes it's simply, you did a lot, you've invested time to try to start using us, but your free trial ends in 2 days. Here's some resources that we think, and it's not just a threat sort of nudge, it's actually where we think people might be getting hung up on, right? So it might be around maybe they want a trial extension, maybe they aren't sure if they can build in calculations, whatever those resources are that we're seeing people are clicking on, we'll put that in there to nudge them along.
Cool.
Yeah.
And just say a little bit about then the data. You said Marketo and Salesforce.
Mm-hmm.
Curious just on when you think about the categories of intent data,
yeah,
that you're tracking, and then like how you think about tracking conversion rates. I mean, conversion from this tofu mofu to SQL.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, just my thoughts on that in general. So, one of the things when we were building out I call this phase we're in MarTech 2.0 for us at GoFormz. MarTech 1.0 was Marketo, that was dropping pixels on people that visit our site or click the newsletter, and we can kind of see the activity of those users coming in, and then Salesforce kind of track those leads and go back and forth. And oftentimes where that would fall flat is the multi-touch attribution piece. Like, did they first come in from an ad? Did they first come in from search? Did they first come in from LinkedIn? We don't really know. And we looked at solutions out there like Visible, which I guess got acquired by Adobe, and some others out there, and it really wasn't filling the gap that we needed as a PLG company. And I think there's some unique needs from a MarTech side that product-led growth companies are looking for. So you go to MarTech 2.0 right now, and we've got a lot of data tracking. We actually have a data scientist on the marketing side who writes a lot of scripts, a lot of code to kind of custom fit those data queries that we're looking for. And it might be things around, what does the churn rate look like for someone that's from SMB from this sector sector versus from like the enterprise from that same sector, and how do we prioritize the journeys that these people are going to have coming in. It also helps us out a lot in terms of trying to figure out that multi-touch attribution piece. And a lot of so aside from someone that writes code that can actually delve into the database from the product side, we also leverage segment. And within that layer of segment to surface up events, we can then feed that back to Salesforce or feed that back to Marketo with very specific data asks. And some of the newer technology that we're layering on top, a bunch of new startups that are getting funded out there, it's all about being able to take action on those PQL or the PLG specific signals coming out of the product. So for example, I mentioned, there was, in the middle of the funnel, folks might be coming in, doing certain events. Maybe they're publishing new forms or whatever it is within our product. Some of these signals, it triggers automations to help nurture and do contextually relevant content, but also it might be, some of these cases might be, hey, someone on the customer success side, or maybe somebody that's an onboarding specialist should reach out to this person because it looks like they're kind of have a more complex issue and send out an email. And we call those the PQL tasks. So the ability for the machine or the marketing automation to build out tasks in Salesforce or send an email internally about users that are getting stuck or users that look like they might be of particularly high value and we should nurture them with more of our enterprise level AEs. That's kind of how we're repurposing that data today.
Makes sense. And then the last question is, what about you've talked a lot about people that have come to your site, downloaded free trial using the forms. I know in the intent data is also moving to this dark web content idea, right? Is like, hey, it's people out there looking for me, SEO, they might be on competitors' website. You tap into it a little bit with the comparison sites. How do you leverage that, the comparison sites or any kind of, looking at, I know there are services that will tell you somebody's looking at your competitors. Are you doing any of that dark web stuff?
Yeah, so I love that question because we've looked at it in particular. And, a lot of times, I'm quite opinionated about this. I could be wrong. That's a disclaimer. I could be wrong about my opinions. A lot of times these peer review sites, like I think G2 is a fantastic site. I think it's, they're very fair with how they curate the reviews and approve and don't approve. They kind of have it's like the second coming of some of these research firms, right? They have a pretty accurate market map and, you can kind of navigate your way around. But sites like G2 and others, aside from the review or comparison data, we are a customer of G2, for example, and oftentimes their value prop pitch is, well, we can help you guys with lead gen. We can tell you like, who are the leads that are coming in that also just looked at one of your competitors' profiles, et cetera, et cetera. And same thing, I think there's some other services out there that we tried, a similar sort of thing. This person also searched for this other site, or this person also searched for these other keywords. And we looked at that and, we had an SDR team that was doing a lot of manual outreach. And we said, okay, can we actually prove that this helps with demand generation or lead gen if we reach out to this person who's clearly in market for our product? And it gets back to what we started this conversation with, which is going outbound from an SDR, even if they're well informed about that this person's in market, isn't the best way to touch someone that's searching. And it actually, in the moment of when they're searching, is the best time. And the way to do that really is just to have a better user experience when they come to your site, which is all my long way around of saying that I'm yet to find a way where people can programmatically use that data to help that audience who doesn't want to talk to a human and they don't really want to click on ads. They want to have a good experience on your website. And we just haven't found a way to leverage it. I know there's probably a solution out there, but we haven't seen it yet.
Well, no, it helps. And it comes back to the theme of you guys have gotten really good at the folks that come to your website, progress to a trial, understand exactly what they're doing, how they came, right? Some hypothesis about why they came based on the search, based on what they downloaded. That gives you then a category to like, how do we go to them based on some contextually relevant messages? So it makes a ton of sense that the data you have is a heck of a lot richer than some of these third-party peer review sites, or hey, they just hit a competitor's website. That's a very random signal in comparison.
Yeah, and I understand those like the peer review sites or comparison sites trying to do it because they're sitting on a wealth of data. I mean, it's just there's going to be someone that unlocks the answer to that someday. But we find them the most useful kind of in that multi-touch, that buyer's journey cycle, right? Where they're looking for validation after they've already got to know us. And at that point, it's interesting to know that they're comparing us to others, but they already know about us, and it's on us to give them a great experience once they hit our site.
Cool.
Yeah.
Ren, thank you for the time today. This has
Right on.
been really outstanding.
Yeah.
We will work towards probably in August. I'll probably write it in July, send it over to you for review. We'll build a revenue leader story on
Cool.
this data-driven demand gen. And
Yeah.
then, our initial conversation with you and Rob was just in this next book, which is more around personalization at scale and marketing
Yeah.
strategies for that.
Yeah.
We'll probably come back to you with some draft text
Right on.
for
Great.
inclusion in that.
Sounds like some fun. Sounds like a lot of fun, Brent.
Really appreciated the time
Yeah.
today.
You bet. I see you. Take care.
Have a good rest of your day.
You too. Bye.